So just setting the context here. Good afternoon, all. I'm Kripa Lakshmi. I'm an intern at Sphere India. So as a part of the Sphere India Academy session, so today we are the topic for today is youth-led innovations in disaster management. So since disaster frequency and the intensity of disasters has been increasing with the context to climate change. So we would like to address a gap in India, especially the involvement of youth in disaster management. So this is basically a platform for us to involve the youth and make them interact with the experts in the field to kind of sensitize them as well as empower them and inspire them into disaster-related activities. So the primary aim is to discuss on how youth can leverage technology into innovative thinking. And we are also aiming to showcase a few examples, real-time examples from youth that were involved in grassroots disaster management activities. So we are expecting to inspire and empower youth to be involved in disaster activities. And the session will begin with a short note from Dr. Girisan. The panelists for today will be Dr. Amit Chatterjee. I'll just give a brief about Dr. Chatterjee. He's a doctorate in environmental management from Kyoto University, Japan. He was trained as an architect, but he did his master's from disaster management from TIS. His work mainly focuses on disaster management. He also spans across architecture and heritage, governance, private sector, and ecosystem services. He has worked in many UN agencies, national and local governments, particularly in India, among other countries in Asia. So, he's also been involved in NIDM training of engineer and architects. He's a recipient of IRPR Young Scientist Fellowship and CEM member of IUCN. So the next panelist is Dr. Shaheen Ansari. Dr. Ansari has a distinguished experience of over 20 years in the development sector with a specific focus on education programs. So he's involved much in youth, adolescent and children education in crisis areas. So Sir holds a PhD in Jawaharlal Nehru University. He has a journalism degree from Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan and he has obtained an advocacy training from National Center for Advocacy Studies. So, Sir has a renowned experience in a lot of international and national organizations like UNESCO, Child Fund International, and currently is the education and emergency specialist with Child Rights in Youth. So the next panelist is Dr. Rupesh Mittal. He is the founder of Cyber Jagriti Foundation and Cyber Consulting. He initiated the foundation to guide students in discovering their passion and acquiring skills for a professional prosperous future. So his work involves mainly with cybersecurity and drone technology. He's a youth with a BTech degree in science and engineering and a postgraduate in diploma in cyber laws. So he's also a Udemy instructor, so we are kind of happy that a youth that is also an instructor can be able to reach a lot of students. And the final analyst is Ms. Sudiksha Rana. Sudiksha is basically from Dharmashala, Himachal Pradesh, and she holds a master's in public health degree like I do. She has a diverse professional background and she has served as a disaster management instructor and collaborated with numerous agencies, including Chandigarh administration. She is also the co-founder of Eco Pahari, an NGO that champions disaster management, climate change advocacy, and ecotourism in Himachal Pradesh. So I would like to welcome all very personally because thanks for accepting my invite. And the session will start with the context from Dr. Girisan. Sir is a director and associate dean of academics at MIT School of Government, MIT World Peace University, Pune. He has a background in public health administration from Punjab University. He holds various roles at Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development under the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. He focuses on youth empowerment and local governance. He has an expertise in research, and it is reflected in his extensive publications in various national and international journals. And he's edited a lot of books as well. He's also conducted numerous research projects for the Ministry of Human Resources Development. He's also engaged in the formulation of constituency management system. It is an ICT-based spatial decision support system as a tool for supporting political leadership. So I would like to personally thank Dr. Girisan for all his guidance and his prompt responses. Thank you so much for accepting my invite in a very short span, sir. It is my pleasure to meet you through this. Over to you, sir, please.
Thank you, Kripa. Esteemed panelists, Dr. Ranit Chatterjee, Dr. Shaheen Ansari, Rupesh Mittal, Sudiksha Rana, and Hannah and Kripalashmi, and all the other delegates who have joined for this webinar. I'm very happy to extend a warm and youthful greetings to all of you. I deem it as an honor and privilege to join the webinar on youth-led innovations in disaster management, organized by the Sphere India Academy. More than that, I believe it is my social responsibility to use this platform to share my thoughts and views on the topic, critical engagement of youth in disaster management. Within the given time, I wish to provide a gist about the significance of youth in the socio-economic political ecosystem in India, before moving on to discuss about the critical engagement of youth in different phases of disaster management. Having said that, it's a matter of great pride for all of us to look back through the pages of history about the contributions of youth in our country with thrust on about one and a half centuries. We all know freedom struggle in India was the manifestation of the vision of a free and independent India, where there could be no slaves and masters and no space for inequality, be it social, economic, and political, and aiming at equitable as well as sustainable development of regions, areas, and citizens across the country. In the freedom struggle, along with elder political leaders and social reformers, a lot of young people, a lot of young leaders, revolutionaries, and activists from diverse backgrounds were also plunged into action. And we all know that through ages, youth has been the vanguard of social change and progress, not only in India, I think across the world, because they are known for their thirst for freedom, impatience for quicker pace of progress, and to some extent idealism, passion for innovation, and of course, intense feeling of creativity and strong dependence on moral values and principles. I think this could be long. They were inspired by the progressive thinkers, political leaders, social reformers like Swami Vivekananda, Maharshi Aurobindo, Gurudev Tagore, Gopalakrishna Gokhale, Balagangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Maulana Azad, Annie Besant, Sarojini Naidu, Subramania Bharati, and the list can be long. The contributions of youth in the freedom struggle pioneered with their heroic deeds, courageous and valorous feats by people like Ashfaqullah Khan, Bhagat Singh, Bipin Chandra Pal, Chandrasekhar Azad, Jhansi Rani, Kanagada Barua, Khudiram Bose, Mangal Pandey, Palsi Raja, Rajguru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Sukhdev, Tillayadi Valliyammal, Velu Nachiyar, and the list can be further long. It may be possible that some of these names were not even heard by some of us before. It is universally accepted that the adolescents and youth are the most vibrant and dynamic segment, as well as potentially most valuable human resource for any country. This clearly points towards the advantage of having a sizable population of youth, which could be tapped properly aiming at nation building. That leads us towards a word called demographic dividend. It is characterized by the rise in working age population with respect to the total population of a country that manifests its growth potentials. It points towards the large segment of working age population that consists of young people. Of course, it's an indicator of the potentials of a country to grow more quickly than other countries. But it's very, very important that this dividend could be translated into positive direction only by providing proper education, adequate healthcare, and equipping them with the necessary skills and competencies, and also empowering them to secure a suitable employment in line with their interest, aptitude, and skills. Only such an approach is expected to mainstream them to contribute vigorously towards the growth and development of country in a greater way. Potentially, this is the most single comparative advantage which could push us ahead of all others in the world. But we cannot forget that this demographic pattern is not for always. It also possesses several opportunities and challenges. It is also necessary that all citizens must be educated, healthy, trained, and skilled to deliver their best for the benefit of self, community, and the nation. If we fail in that mission, this demographic dividend may turn into a social liability, economic liability, and more than that, a political liability. And we have several evidence of youth unrest in the backward and disturbed regions of the country and the world. It is in this context I wish to look at today's webinar that is thoughtfully selected by the Spare India Academy. Significance of involving community in the development process, which includes disaster management, has been well explained in a small document by Asia Disaster Preparedness Center in 2004. I quote, "Nobody can understand the local opportunities and constraints better than local communities themselves, who therefore need to be involved in the identification and resolution of disaster vulnerability issues. And nobody is more interested in understanding local affairs than the community, whose survival and well-being is at stake. Therefore, this information shall be generated in a manner and language that is understood by the community." It's quite apt. If the youth are ignored or not involved, it will only increase the vulnerability of the community in general. And it is essential that they get adequate opportunities and scope to perform. And I wish to highlight, or I wish to emphasize, that ensuring ownership of youth in the different phases or the whole process of disaster management is very, very important, significant for any country. Now, let me move on to the main topic, critical engagement of youth in disaster management. Here, I would like to throw some light because of shortage of time. I would rush through touching upon some other points on certain areas of critical engagement by segregating into three phases: pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster. In the pre-disaster phase, youth are expected to carry out several functions in line with the measures of disaster preparedness. And most of these functions, they could do it in support of local governments and the community-based organizations functioning in the field. Especially, there are several organizations who have taken disaster management as one of their key areas for moving ahead. For example, they could initiate mapping of resources and facilities in and around their area, where at least their area of dwelling or area of their interest, with emphasis on number of aspects, like looking at temporary locations for keeping evacuated persons, storage of food, and various other things. And also try to keep a tab on various other resources, like things which could be used in terms of disaster, and also have a list of human resources with their skill sets. Of course, it's a elaborate work, but once it is done, they only need to be updated at regular intervals, especially update about the status of these resources. So basically, mapping of natural resources, physical resources, and human resources. Then carrying out vulnerability mapping of the area, vulnerability mapping and vulnerable communities, and update their vulnerable status at regular intervals. And also prepare an evacuation plan. Of course, this cannot be done by a few people. It has to be done in association with the local government and with people with some expertise. And prepare a directory of blood donors and volunteers and all that. And of course, one thing I forgot to mention, when you prepare an evacuation plan, I think there has to be special focus on priority for children, women, especially we can say social stratification, differently abled, the sick, aged, and all that. And of course, it's very, very important that as a part of pre-disaster, organizing capacity building of different stakeholders. Like every family, at least one person should be trained on preparing an emergency kit. And in general, the community should be trained on mock drills at regular intervals. And every young person should be trained on application of first aid and carrying out safe evacuation, and also application of CPR, and to some extent operating power unit or communication sets. In this context, it is very important to understand the social vulnerability of disasters because disaster is not doesn't leave anyone. And to address differential impacts of disasters on the different sections, like as I said earlier, children, women, differently able, sick, elderly, and all that from the functional area. Then coming to the second phase, during disaster. During the onset of disaster, the following activities could be taken up, like, of course, along with again support of the local government, a 24/7 emergency control room with has adequate data about the area and other institutions, and also about the resources, facilities, communication equipment, backup power. Now, also provision of first aid and CPR to the affected persons. And as member of a core team, because generally we could find a lot of youngsters, they be part of the core team of a disaster management center, or as part of a rapid response team. The youth could contribute a lot by working round the clock and engage themselves in continuous monitoring of various activities in the area. And again, communication is a very, very important point during disaster because there has to be a single point of communication which goes from an area to the other centers or the responsible areas. And also, it's very, very important to have a special communication protocol to be maintained during disaster situations. And of course, one of the other important area which they could consider is operating community kitchen. During disasters, it's very, very important that young volunteers should get themselves involved in different activities by taking adequate precautions and protective gear for themselves. It's very, very important. And coming to the third phase, role of youth in the post-disaster phase. Of course, in this phase, they are expected to perform number of activities like provision of basic needs like drinking water and subsistence food to the affected community, and supply of essential items like ration, cooking fuel, kitchen utensils, clothes to the needy people, and of course, construction of temporary shelters and temporary sanitation facilities with special focus on women, differently able, and aged and children. And of course, ensure supply of water purifying tablets and emergency medicines. And of course, as organizing medical camps at different parts of the area, ensuring supply of sanitary napkins to the adolescent girls and young women, ensuring uninterrupted supply of food and nutrition to children, adolescent, pregnant women, lactating mother through Anganwadis or childcare centers, and also to identify the families that require livelihood support and basic infrastructure requirements and link them with the concerned programs. Identify the persons who need psychosocial care and enable them to get over the traumatic period. While promoting a people-centered approach to disaster risk reduction, it is viewed that people are at risk are central to all disaster risk reduction activities. Special attention is to be given, promote gender equity and full participation of vulnerable groups. To sum up, mainstreaming youth in disaster management, I wish to suggest the measures by using an acronym 4E's. How do we engage? How do we enable? How do we ensure? And how do we empower the youth? And of course, they need to understand the social vulnerability. They need to realize differential impacts of disasters on children, adolescents, women, elderly, sick, and person with disability and aged people. And of course, there is a need for enabled, committed, dynamic, empathetic, and proactive leadership. And we also could think of taking up a policy initiative in this dimension. Because when we go through the policies at the national and state level, the focus is not much on disaster preparedness. And also the roles and responsibilities of youth and youth organizations are not clearly spelled out. I think this is an area which we could look into it. Just to sum up, youth as a vital segment of society, their creativity, dynamism, energy, all should be properly channelized towards ensuring critical engagement of youth in disaster management. I have no doubt that critical engagement of youth and youth-led innovations in disaster management will lead to incorporation of new ideas, approaches, strategies, and practices, which will have a positive impact in the socio-economic political ecosystem of our country. Before I close, I wish to quote Swami Vivekananda, the largest youth icon of our country forever and always. He said, "This life is short. The vanities of the world are transient, but they alone who live for others, the rest are more dead than alive." Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot for a insightful session. Thanks for highlighting the critical engagement of youth in all phases of disaster management, and especially thanks for mentioning that youth involved in disaster management activities should also protect themselves. And thanks for the special mention on disaster risk reduction. And your policy suggestion on disaster preparedness and involving more youth into it, that could be, we wrote it down, and that could be probably a topic for our another session. Thanks a lot for thank you. Thanks a lot. So I would like to pass on the mic to Hannah. Before that, I would like to take a minute to very personally thank the panelists that have come here. Thanks, Rani Chatterjee sir, for accepting my invite, and thanks for coming in a very short notice. And Shaheen Ansari sir, thanks for coming, and also thanks a lot for mm, you know teaming us up with other youth and other NGOs that are also a part of this session. And they'll come in the end of the panel discussion. And thanks to Mr. Rupesh Mittal, in spite of the technical issues, you are patient with us. And thanks Sudiksha for involving in this, and we look forward to your discussion. Over to Ms. Hannah for moderating the panel discussion.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kripa, and thank you so much, Girish sir, for setting the context. And you have rightly pointed out the importance of youth. And as you were talking, I was wondering like how effectively youth can fit into the pre, post, and during disaster preparations and responses. And as a community, like from a community perspective, I too believe that they would be the perfect like stakeholders here that we have to tap to enhance the disaster preparedness response in our country. So once again, welcome to our session today, and thank you all speakers for joining us. As you all know, as today's panelists, we have experts who work with the youth, who have expertise in disaster management, and also we have youth who are doing the entrepreneurship or like volunteering work, who are active in disaster management. So we are wishing for a two-way communication system and an effective panel to understand what are the challenges and to come up with some of the strategies in with which we can engage more youth. So before, without any delay, I would like to get into our first speaker. So I would like to start with Mr. Ranit Chatterjee. He's Managing CEO of RICA Institute. So, sir, with your background and your diverse experience in disaster management, and your expertise is actually spanning various sectors. You have worked in UN, government, and most of the stakeholders. So, can I ask you, like, if you can share some insights into the importance of youth resilience, especially when it comes to strengthening community preparedness and response?
Thank you, Hannah, and very honored to be part of this very interesting platform and with all the esteemed panelists. I'll just give a background of my engagement with youth, and of course, I had been also a youth. Youth itself is a very, this definition of youth varies across countries, and within India also it has various, age group which it encompasses. And if you look back at public, like I think some article from WHO 2 years back, it was saying that youth is till the age of 65. So I don't know where to stop. We all are youthful, and I consider myself also as being part of it. But strictly following the age, like at least for the government regulations, we have a different, like definite age group that we look at. And within that, I think it would be not justified if we do not extend that age group a bit, because many of the youths actually, especially who are into research, do not engage into the societal affairs unless they graduate. And like say, if someone who is doing PhD would actually finish the PhD by 28. So this was a significant, inclusion in 2019 in the GAR report, And I was one of the contributor to it in the UNDRR session on the global platform, where we suggested that it's not only youth, but youth and young professionals. Because what happens to those people who cross that threshold of youth, but then they are still they want to contribute, but they find nowhere. So I generally prefer to use this term youth and young professionals, YYPs, and this is now an accepted terminology. And when it comes to their engagement, what youth brings along with them is raw energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of technological know-how, which as we age, we become less and less acceptable, or possibly our know-how of the technologies decrease. And along with it, also the youth are much more mobile. They are much more well connected. And these are some things which are very essential when it comes to disaster management. As Dr. Girishan has rightly said, it encompasses so many different phases of disaster management, but I would focus more on the youth's role in science, engineering, technology, and innovation. There's a term for it. It's called SETI, Science, Engineering, Technology, Innovation. And that's where the youth and young professionals play a very important role, because this is where the formative years of the youth is focused on. And also people who are into higher education, this is the age group where they are contributing a lot in terms of papers, in terms of new research, in terms of new findings from the field. And there has been such kind of initiatives across the world where the youths have been engaged in, say, for example, I was one of the signatory for the establishment of You Inspire Alliance, which is a network of youth from we started with 8 countries in Asia Pacific, and now it has expanded to 15 countries, backed by UNDRR, UNESCO, and all other major groups. And we contribute in all the global policy dialogues, whether it is COP28, whether it is HELP, or any other such kind of global policy dialogues. So this is an example of how youth, and what this group does is most of the people who are in this group are either into research, or are entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, or are into are youth leaders, political leaders, or are uh, also working with various government organizations, NGOs. But what they do is they bring in their experiences, they bring in their research on this platform, and we cumulatively then inform the global policies. So this itself becomes a very good platform for bringing in evidences and supporting youth-led movements. Not only youth, but also young professionals as well. So it's a very good platform. And this possibly is a very good example of showcasing how youth would effectively make their voices heard. Because many times it happens that when, in the policy domain, the youth voices become very feeble. And they are more taken for granted, and they are accepted as, okay, they are very good in responding, very good in doing all the groundwork, but also they are very effective in making their voices heard. And I think Greta is a very good example, who someone who had made her voice heard, and there are many more examples. Yeah, with that, maybe I'll pass it over back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rennet, for as you rightly said, institutions like this or networks like this actually will help to bring together youth in a particular form, and then informations can be further disseminated from there. So thank you for pointing out that. We'll come back to you in a later stage. So moving on to the next speaker, we have Mr. Rupesh Mittal with us. He's a founder and director of Cyber Jagrati Foundation. So Rupesh, thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to ask you, with your extensive experience with the cybersecurity and education, and also as a young professional, what are the challenges that you face while establishing your career? And also when it comes to disaster management, like if you can highlight some of the obstacles that you have encountered, and also a suggested like potential solutions that you can offer us from a young perspective?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Anna, for the brief introduction. A very good afternoon to everyone over here. I'm very thankful for getting the invite and an opportunity to speak in front of you all on the challenges faced by youth, especially in the arena of using latest technologies when it comes to disaster management. So I see, many senior professionals have also Mr. Grishan and Sachin Sansari sir are also there. So there were days when a helicopter, if a remote area is there or some place which from where there is though no land connectivity, a helicopter used to be sent to do the recovery or the management of the disaster that has happened over there. But the days have changed now. The days are gone now. Now the government or the NDRF team is more interested in sending a drone instead of a helicopter or an any other air support which it wants to send. So by the use of the technologies, I'm not sure if I'm able to will be able to share a screen or not, but I'll definitely share some pictures with you post the session, in which you'll be able to see what different types of innovations have come. I have been fortunate to be part of some air shows and drone associations, in which the way the movement from one place to other can be made at a very lower cost, because sending an vehicle, like a helicopter from one place to another requires a number of approvals, lakhs of cost, and so much of manpower. A lot of energy and time is consumed in that. But just imagining that you just a size of a box, or a 3 feet or 5 feet, a drone which has capacity to lift around 50 to 1 ton, right? That are quintals of food, or oxygen, or maybe now the drones have gone so to an extensive level that it can carry even a human being also, right? Not only some luggage or some goods and service goods from one place to the other. They are also made in a car, in like a nano. It looks like a nano car, small, bulgy, in which 1 or 2 persons can sit, and just it has a fan on that. So it's very easy to commute from here and there also, and successfully. I'm not sure. I'm not seen any of India of images, but in other countries, people have started using it. Using this kind of technology to foster or to do some kind of rescue operations. So this and not only teach to the participants of NDRF, but to my fortunate, I have been in panel discussions and training sessions of various law enforcement agencies, in which in various situations of border areas or Naxalites, people do use this kind of solutions to plan some rescue operations, or some any kind of operations. So that is one. When you want to do some response, when you want to give some response to a disaster, but the same technologies can also be used in order to detect any such disaster can happen. So now we can see so many weather reports, many of the much of the scientific data is generated with the satellites and all. So those can be analyzed, and a prediction can be made out of those, with which uh, you know uh, a future or upcoming disaster which is expected to happen. I'm not sure, talking anywhere here about the efficiency of that result or the prediction that has come, but upfront in an when you in advance, you know that it's a disaster may happen, so that a plan can be made, a rescue operation before such thing can be made. I was just yesterday reading about an article from it's on Miami, somewhere. So a girl was awarded a presidential award for saving thousands of lives. So what she did is she was a child of ex army, so she knew how, if a tide comes, how does the ocean behave. So they were at the beach, and suddenly at a very high speed, the water of the beach was going backwards. So it clicked her mind, and she immediately informed her parents that, the water is going immediately backside, at a very rapid speed. And that generally happens only when a high tide or some a high level of, pressure is going to be generated. So such things can also, such patterns can be identified and seen, and a disaster which is going to happen can be detected in, before it happens. So AI and machine learning technologies can be used in collection, by collecting all the data, put a model on top of it, and a trigger or an alarm system can be made whenever there is a disaster, or such prediction. Some alarms can be set based on the parameters of maybe weather or the climate or various other parameters, whichever the suits in that locality, with which, pass, because not everywhere we see. It's not happening in many disasters which are currently happening, or tsunamis or tides which you are seeing, or wherever there is a DRF team being enabled. It's not a first, mostly in 90 to 95% of it's not going that the first time. It has been sent, second or third time. So they already have some past data with which they can tell, they can say that these were the pointers. If they were seen properly, it could have been detected that, so and so disaster is going to happen. So those pointers can be taken into consideration. Data can be collected on those, sensors can be enabled on those, and a prediction mechanism can be set up, which, when the parameters are matching, it creates an alarm system. Just like you can see at rivers, whenever there are the flood banks in maybe in Delhi or Yamuna rivers and all, they have an alarm system. The water level is rising, they come to know in advance that, okay, the water level is going to rise now, so something is to be done, right? The same way, in various places, various mechanisms that can be deployed, and a prediction mechanism can be made. Secondly, coming back to the response force, use of technologies like drones and other things, like in which not only into water related, in fire related mechanisms also, such things have been used now. So it's just like how we decide the payload, what we want to send from one place to another, it's on us. So we can configure the payload as per the requirements of the scenario. Payload here, I mean what you want to attach to the drone, and you can, it's endless possibilities. It just needs your creativity in that. And being a youth, most of you will be eligible for that, because if you see the drone regulations or the drone rules of 2021, a person above 21 years of age can fly a drone. They can get a license to fly a drone. You can be a drone pilot. You can get the certificate for it. You can get trained on how to ride a drone. You are fully equipped on that. You can purchase a drone also. Maybe we may not be able to afford to purchase, a helicopter and get a pilot license. That's wholly different big thing. But comparatively, getting trained and getting equipped to such operations is very easy. So my recommendation would be, youth can concentrate or can focus on such advancements of technology, get trained, get equipped in that, and make some creative mechanisms by which, a easy and cost effective response plan can be made.
Thank you so much, Rupesh, for highlighting the role of technology. And even our previous speakers have mentioned how youth have an upper hand in using technologies. And since there are so many places where technology has not still been used, even though there are possibilities, thank you for that, for encouraging more youth to explore and more study more on youth. So your point actually directs me to the next speaker, who is Dr. Shaheen Ansari. Sir, I wanted to ask you, like, from your experience on educational programming and advocacy, you have worked a lot with government. So as Mr. Rupesh have told, what do you think government can collaborate in youth-led organizations to enrich the disaster management efforts? So how can these both parties work together more efficiently to enhance the disaster preparedness response? So he also, even our previous speaker also mentioned about the cost that comes with drone or using technologies like this. So how do you think like government can step in here?
Thank you, Hanna ji, Dr. Girisenam, Dr. Ranit Chatterjee ji, Ms. Sudiksha Rana, Mr. Rupesh Mittal, Sphere India and SCL Foundation. Thank you very much for organizing this important, webinar. And yes, before I go into the question, how can government help? I want to emphasize that there are three important, why youth should be engaged, and they have already touched. So one thing we should know that the youth can be engaged two ways. One is government initiatives, and the second is civil society initiative. So I have especially asked for the government initiative. There are lots of, government has lots of initiative already. Like if you for disaster, there is Abda Mitras program, by Ministry of Home Affairs, which is being trained by NIDM, National Institute of Disaster Management. Then there is a government also engage youth in their national service schemes called NSS. Then another is NCC, National Cadet Corps, Nehru Yuva Kendra schemes, Bharat Scouts and Guides, and NIDM, that is National Institute of Disaster Management, which comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs. They are directly working with these groups of youth, NSS, NCC, NYKS, Bharat Scouts, and Abda Mitras. And the government is ready to engage youth. And because of this, there is already a draft is ready. This is called Draft National Youth Policy 2021. It has not been passed till now, but in the draft form. But the government has already, emphasized in this the development. They call it Yuva Shakti. Under this Yuva Shakti, they have 5 pillars, 5 components, and in those 5 components, I think 2 are very important. I will only discuss 2 because of the shortage of time. One, they call it youth leadership and development, under which they want to engage youth and train them for, if we want to engage them in Abda Mitra, so through for the DRR, disaster risk reduction. And another thing, this national youth policy, which is emphasizing our that leverage the power of diversity in the youth and ensure equitable progress for all groups. So the government is already ready, and I have seen. I am as a CRI, we are working with NIDM directly, National Institute of Disaster Management. We are working with MG-SIPA, that and these are the welcoming, institute, state level institute. So what we have to do, we have to create a plan, and we have to showcase with the government to look. Here are the government program, it's like Abda Mitra, and this is how Sphere India and the we can say the Sphere India is like a sangam, संगम जो होता है ना, जहाँ बहुत सारी नदियां मिलती हैं, तो ये संगम युवाओं का संगम है, ये एनजीओ का संगम है, और वो जो आपदा मित्र पे काम कर रहे हैं, जो डिजास्टर पे काम कर रहे हैं. So I think we just have to approach the right person at the right place in the government, and I think for this they are welcome, and we have a the Prime Minister's 10-point agenda for disaster risk reduction. In that 10-point agenda, the Prime Minister has also mentioned about how to engage youth and and other deprived section of the society for the development of society and for the building the resilience society. So we have to just fixing. They already have the program at the district level. They have a district disaster risk reduction. The program is going on. Recently, NIDM has a training program with youth in Kashmir, on social emotional learning and during disaster and emergency. And in that, there are lots of youth who engaged. They do not know how to, plug in this important aspect of the disaster preparedness. How to, prepare ourselves for the disaster. So yeah, these are the I think we already have a policy, we already have an institute. We just have to plug them, meet them, and because the government understand the youth as हमारे previous speakers already said that they are very dynamic force. Youth are very dynamic, and he says that I think uh, Dr. The first speaker has said that like Vivekanand, like Bhagat Singh, like all the changes if you see across the world and in India are brought by the youth. All the changes क्योंकि उनके अंदर चैलेंज लेने की क्षमता होती है. They are they can take the challenge. They can. So what we have that we have to just उनके जो एनर्जी है उस एनर्जी को हमें एक डायरेक्शन देना है from TRR point of view, from preparedness point of view. And I think that is what I would like to say. And then if there is any question, I will come back again. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaheen, for pointing out how government can influence youth. And you have mentioned about a lot of strategies that government is already into. And thank you for pointing out about the draft youth policy of 2021. And we hope that it also gets implemented in the right manner. And you have also mentioned how we can rightly tap the energy of youth into the disaster management preparedness activities. I believe that there's a lot of strategies that they have to put in place. I know that when it comes to NCC or NSS camps during their school times, it's a good place for students to get involved in such activities. And also there is an incentive where they can get an extra grade in their final exam. So that is kind of incentives, and that's a good strategy to gain interest of students. So I think it's the right time that we move on to our last speaker, Ms. Sudiksha Rana. So Sudiksha, actually with your experience, you also work as a climate activist. So I want to hear from you if you can share some examples of innovative initiatives that you have been involved in or you have witnessed, and from your perspective, what are some of the innovative approaches that we can bring in the disaster management? One, to encourage more youth into disaster preparedness activities. And also, like as a youth, what do you think that government can do, or government or civil society, NGOs or policymakers can do to help you to be more active in the sectors?
So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Respected all the panelists and all the participants here. And I'm very thankful for Sphere India and CRY to invite me here as a panelist. Before answering your question, I would...
Sorry, Sudiksha, can you unmute? I'm sorry, I got mute. Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So once again, good afternoon, everyone, and respected all the panelists and all the participants here. I really thank Sphere India and CRY to have me as a panelist here. And before answering to your question, I would just like to tell about my organization because it is somehow linked to your question. So we are known as Eco Pahari, and originally it was established as global development programs with a primary focus on disaster management, specifically talking about the earthquakes, because I belong to Kangra district, and this the Kangra is very much prone to earthquakes. But as a result of more research, learning, and introspection, over understanding, our understanding has developed, and now we are known as Eco Pahadi, which we understand as climate change being the major threat to the humankind, mankind, and the planet. The climate change possesses the most significant threat to us. So when the global development programs changed to Eco Pahari, we had some visions, which were we wanted to connect youth for climate change, because we all understand that youth, they are acutely aware of the future threats and challenges ahead of us. They very well know that there will be the shortage of resources, and they are coming into actions, and they understand that their duty. Right. So, second being, we understand that the climate change as the biggest hazard, and third, we want to connect youth who are not professionally trained, or who are not, highly qualified or highly experienced, but we want to connect with them who are unexperienced yet passionate about disaster management. Our previous panelist, Ranit Chatterjee, he said that he mentioned that the youth, they work, they are passionate, but they are not heard. We have, like, I personally have experienced it. Despite of our collective experience and enthusiasm, we often encounter skepticism and judgment due to our youthful appearance. Right. So, yes, answering your question, I believe that more and more youth, whether experienced or not experienced, they should get the opportunity to represent themselves, to be heard. Our ideology should be like accepted by the other organizations as well. The NIDM, I'm very grateful for NIDM, because I got the opportunity there, and they are the cry especially, they are focusing on youth, and they are bringing them. uh, I think that challenging them, brainstorming them, letting them brainstorm their ideas, they are really going to affect, because as an organization, we have trained almost over 10,000 volunteers, and specifically from the Himalayan and the foothills region of Himalayas. And these volunteers, they are all connected with us, and we all work together in the field, in the community level. Recently, there was a fire near Sector 53, Chandigarh, in the furniture market. So we all gathered there, and we all worked. So the youth, they are very passionate, and they want to work in the field. And also, our organization, as a youth, we also are working in the Dharamshala, which is in Himachal Pradesh, and we are working there for the relief, because we see land subsidence and landslides in Himachal, right? So we usually don't get funds. We raise the funds by ourselves, by our savings, by our friends and our families, and that's how we do. So to sum up, I just want to say that the youth, they should be provided stage. They should you know as a when I was younger, I always wanted an elder for me, who would show me the way. So I want us all to be that elder for our upcoming youth, so that we can direct them to the proper, because they have a lot of energy, and we have to channelize that energy. So that is all I would.
Thank you so much, Sudiksha, for introducing your organization with us and also explaining the challenges that you face. You have mentioned about how there's a, a lack of acknowledgement that you get, and how it would be great if you get more platforms to share. And also, there are so many organizations like yours that we know who are struggling to get into the mainstream and work more actively with in the youth. So I just want to put the question back to our panelists and our speakers. If you can like think of any like practical strategies that we can put in to help organizations like this as an NGO or as a part of government, which can go into the action, action items after this, like in the report that we create after this? Any speakers can take that question if you have ideas. I know we have talked about like government initiatives and all, but any other strategies that can be used, even Sudiksha and Rupesh, you can step in here to see to Girishan sir, I can see your hand raised.
I would like to make two quick suggestions. One, when we look into the national and state youth policies, we could not find any specific role for youth and youth organizations. I think there are two things. One, there is an adequate trust should be given for the preparedness phase. And that is an area where young people and youth organizations and young professionals could do a lot. That is one. So the policy need to be relooked with a lot of trust on disaster preparedness. Unfortunately, most of the policies at the national as well as state levels, state policies is more focused on post-disaster. I think there is a need for a paradigm shift towards pre-disaster. That is one. Secondly, one of the delegates raised a very important point. Why can't we teach swimming and all? Swimming and first aid, I think is very, very important. Swimming ideally should be taught, whether you teach mathematics or English or Hindi or any other thing, it should be taught at the primary levels. Swimming, cycling, and first aid, and maybe driving. These are the things should be taught before 10th or 12th. These are the two quick suggestions I would like to highlight. Thank you.
I also would like to add to Dr. Girisan that we should also add disaster management and climate change and these life-saving skills to the curriculum. So that should be there.
Ranit sir, you also have your hand.
Yeah, a few points that could be considered. One is encourage the young entrepreneurs. Okay, they bring in fund and they bring in also enthusiasm and openness to contribute. Okay, that's and they have a lot of potential to contribute to disaster management. What we need to do is connect the dots. Possibly everyone is so dispersed that we don't get connected to them. That's one. Second is a shift in the way we look at policy. Youth policies should be made by youth, not by old people, right? If it's a youth policy, youth are capable enough to make their own policies. So that's a second shift. And it's a shift in the perception, our mindset that we need to make. Okay, we don't need to be governed by some other people. And that's a problem, basic problem, and which I think also Sudiksha was pointing out, and I was also saying, and I have been working also with Indian government. So this is a perennial problem. That's the second point. The third thing is within youth, there is lack of coherence. Everyone is running in their own direction. Very difficult to bring them together. How do you bring them together itself is a challenge. I have faced it because when we established this U-Inspire Alliance, we had around 2,500 members all over 15 countries, and everyone was running in their own, different directions. How do you, channelize that huge energy to, spearhead some, in a single direction? It's a very important point. So making such kind of, youth-led platforms, and identifying within youth someone who is going to take responsibility. The problem with youth is who is going to be responsible and accountable. That's a big problem. And this is something which I also have faced as a youth. I have worked with them. So this is a perennial problem with it. And the fourth one is, there are a lot of funds in research. And as youth, a lot of us are, I'm talking about also young professionals, a lot of youth and young professionals are into research, and those can be channelized to action research rather than waiting for government funds. So a lot of those action research can make a lot of small changes on ground. And I think that's where you can bring in technologies, new learnings, everything, and then also train the next generation. And like in Japan, like my daughter goes to school, she is in standard 1. Disaster management starts right from standard 1. They tell how to be safe from earthquake. They train teachers, and the youth itself or the kids itself, they become kind of the the motivators for the next generation. When you go back home, if you train a kid or a youth, they would teach their parents, they would teach their neighbors, and that itself becomes a spoken will system. So there are many opportunities we possibly need to come together. I think that's the first step towards the success. Thank you.
Very well said, sir. Sahin sir, you also have your hand raised.
Yeah, yeah. So I have the opportunity to meet some more people from Sudiksha's organization, Eco Pahadi, Anju Sharma and Tarush, from her organization in the earlier program. And I realized that this, as you said, the strategy, they have the strategy, but we need to connect them with several, experienced organization. They are not, and give them a training, a kind of, and Sphere India, since Sphere India, as I shared earlier, is a sangam of organization working on DRR. So Sphere India has that opportunity, that that it can create that connect, that organization like Eco Pahadi, uh, Sudiksha, Anju, Tarush, all they can be linked with some organization for some time, maybe 3 months, 6 months, and to learn the art, of if they want to have fund. There are every organization has different unit, fundraising unit, programming unit, implementing there. So accordingly, they can be linked with that division of that particular organization. So that is the one suggestion. Some of the organizations also have fellowship, like CRI has a National Child Rights Fellowship we have, and annually we provide 5 fellowship from different part of India, and so we invite youth, those who are not connected with any NGOs, and they want to have experience in development sector. So we give 1 year fellowship, and they are supposed to write some synopsis. There will be some supervisor also. So that kind of thing we can also discuss. Sphere India can take this also and then connect with organization like us, that okay, can we have so these are the some, because we must tap this young person. Youth are very important, and सबसे बड़ी बात है, they have the capacity to take challenge, है ना? इन लोग चैलेंज ले सकता है लोग। आई वाज लिसनिंग फ्रॉम तरुष, तरुष का बहुत ही डिजास्टर, ही वाज आल्सो यंग, ही इज यंग, और वो हिमाचल में कई डिजास्टर रिस्क रिडक्शन में ही हैज पार्टिसिपेटेड, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ हिज यंग एज पीपल कुड नॉट ट्रस्ट हिम, एज सुदक्षा वाज सेइंग। ये होता है कि अरे ये तो बच्चा है, ये तो ये क्या करेगा, लेकिन दे कैन डू if we can train them, we can provide space, and I think this is my few suggestion. Over to you, Hanna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sahin sir. I can see the hand raised, Rupesh. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I see Harisan sir and Sudiksha mentioning about some educational programs, and so I feel that can be achieved with the National Education Policy of 2020, which has been introduced, in which a focus on interdisciplinary skills has been highlighted, and various institutions have come up already, and organizations like Sphere India may also put forward in such skills which are interdisciplinary in nature in educational institutions. Third-party organizations also, like NGOs or private organizations, can get associated with education institutions and run an interdisciplinary program with a special focus on such disaster management programs. So I feel such skills or such kind of curriculum can also be designed, and a special focus should be given on that also, so that a training while education can be provided, instead of giving a special job-based training. If at the education level or at the institution level, a bachelor degree or a master degree level only, such mechanism is provided, then it will be very easy for the students to get into field with a prior exposure of the field, is my suggestion.
Thank you so much, Rupesh ji, for that. So, from all the suggestions that you have mentioned, one thing that stood up to me was bringing disaster preparedness or resilience as a culture. So, bring it as a culture. One of the best way is, as many of you said, to start this at the school level. And in a very primary stage. So even I think it was Renit sir who mentioned how even the primary schools have been students have been exposed to different disasters, like how to the rescue evacuation methods and preparations, and so that culture stays along with them, and so by the time they get out of school they are equipped with all the knowledges. So I am here. I would also like to pitch in and mention that Sphere India has a education sector committee, which is a committee of all the organizations which are working with youth and children. CRY is also a part of. So we are actually working on a way to include the disaster resilience and disaster preparedness into the Samagra Shiksha plan and NCRT and curriculums like that. So we are in a process of it. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be able to influence, the ministries and the textbooks and have a proper disaster lens, so that students from their primary ages get used to the terms like the preparedness and resilience and all. Thank you all speakers for your amazing suggestions. I would like to quickly open the discussion, open the platform for any questions from our audiences. If anybody has any questions, you please feel free to raise your hands. I also can see there's a wide, we have participants from Pan India. I can see a lot of people who have written their descriptions here. So if there is any questions or suggestions that you have to put in, please feel free to. So I think we are good in that. Okay. So to quickly summarize the main points that we had today. So before that, I also, one point, I don't remember which speaker, I think it was Sahin sir who mentioned about NCC and NSS. So I have personally worked with the cadets like that. And one thing I can observe that's giving them some kind of incentives at school level. So in this case, it was grades, like extra grace marks that actually helped people, students, that attracted students to learn more about this, to invest their time. And so at the end of the day, it's a skill building activity. So this is one of the things which I also have to put forward, incentivize a lot. For example, organizations like Sudikshas. So when youth come up with initiatives on disaster preparedness or response and resilience, if we can incentivize their activities, it's kind of like we are appreciating them and acknowledging them. That would actually enhance the increase, and we can bring in more students in that, more youth into that sector. And also we talked about a lot of strategies today, a lot of challenges today, more to bring in disaster from the primary school levels, and also about connecting the existing initiatives with the senior agencies here, like government or NGOs who are working it to increase their expertise in that, and also capacity building initiatives from the grassroots level. So I believe that the session was very informative and a lot of cross learning has happened today. And I can't thank all the speakers enough for coming, accepting our invitation and coming for the session today. We will be putting it up as a report and we'll be sharing it across. Also, the recording, I believe, will be shared in YouTube platforms. And we as Srividya, we want to bring in more youths. We want to give them more platforms, highlight their activities so that a lot more cross partnerships happen. And like the agencies know which youth organization they should contact when it comes for actual like emergencies or disasters that happen. So anyway, once again, thank you so much. So I would like to hand it over to Abdul.
Once again, thanks to all the speakers and the participants who are all being for coming this session, and gratitude to all the speakers and experts and participants for the valuable contribution to today's webinar. Your insightful discussion and examples of innovative solution has illuminated the potential of youth engagement in building and resilient communities. We are immensely thankful for all dedication and empowering young minds and fostering collaboration towards effective disaster preparedness and response. All the speaker provided today has inspired all the harness and creativity and energy of all the youth in addressing the challenges and many more things. So all speaking and giving examples to all the people that came from interns and students are present in there. Once again, thank you all on your commitment and support. In shortly, we will prepare all the reports and send to the respective mail for the all. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.